start. Let me know when streaming.
Okay, so we are live, so you can start. Thank you all for coming today.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for coming, all of you guys. And let me just shortly introduce our today's speaker, Maxem Hillebrand. And Max is crypto-anarchist, cypherpunk, and he loves open source and building privacy weapons. You can know him as a hardcore Wasabi Wallet shill, and he will help you to launder your money properly. But he's also deeply interested in Austrian economics. So today he will talk about Mrs. Kinda topic about Praxeology, but Praxeology with exactly these cypherpunks privacy-preserving topics. So mic is yours, Max. And if you have any questions, we will probably answer them on the end of the talk, or maybe Max will make it interactive. But if there is any moderation needed, I'm here and Jan is here. So I think we're ready for that. Max, go ahead.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Mario. Thanks for the invite, guys. I really like the format. Good that you're using Jitsi. Beautiful free software tool. Not yet self-hosted, but I guess there's always room for improvement. Right? So yes, today's topic is the praxeology of privacy. And as Mario has said in the intro, my initial background was actually Austrian economics. This has always interested me for a long, long time. Even much longer before I discovered Bitcoin as the applied theory of Austrian economics in the monetary realm. So I will approach this topic with a Austrian, or more specific, a praxeological analysis approach. So we will start with first principles and first axioms, and from there logically deduct in this model that we're building what following steps rationally have to come based on these axioms. And we will apply this to something that I personally did not really think about much while I was mainly focusing on Austrian economics, but that since discovering Bitcoin has interested me phenomenally, and that is the aspect of privacy. So we'll go through a definition of privacy and how to see this in a praxeological economic mindset. And why individuals choose to have some relations, some actions of them privately. And then we'll just see where this whole thing goes. But before we start with all this, one thing that I really would like to point out is that I don't like giving talks usually, because that's very boring when it's just me speaking. So I would much rather have a very good conversation. And this, I hope, we will have here today. I see already 7-8 people joining in the call on Jitsi. So this is an open room. Please come in, and please don't wait till the end for asking questions. If there's something, some burning idea in your mind, then please speak up. And just either raise your hand, Jitsi has a function like that, or just start speaking and be part of the conversation. I would like to have this in a format that is called a Socratic seminar, where it is very interactive and challenging questions are raised amongst the peers who have this learning conversation. I think it's a phenomenal way to interact. And by the way, it's also a very Austrian economics way to interact, because in the good old days where Ludwig von Mises was still in Vienna, he regularly, every Friday, organized what was called a Mises-Kreis, just a Mises seminar, basically, where there was Mises, of course, as the master of economics teaching, but there were also very smart students who were there, and of course also had a mind of their own and a will of their own. So they had this very interactive, long-lasting conversations, and this is really how the Austrian tradition was discovered, as this rhetoric, logical analysis. So I really think that it fits the format, and so it would be nice if we can do this. And so how I usually like to start with these is a very, very quick introduction for those people who are already on the call and those who want to give some more information about their background, who you are, why you're interested in this topic. And I think this will just give us a nice baseline on who is engaging in this conversation and who will be a part of it. So how about, and again, we are already, I see now rather many in the call. So please keep it short, just a couple sentences. You don't need to specify your name if you don't want to, but please, someone start speaking. Who will make the decision to speak first? Are you robots or actual humans?
This is the always issue on the webinars when the speaker asks something and then there is just a silence. So should I start just briefly? I am Mario, and I'm proudly helped to organize this event, and so I kind of have to be interested in. Am I right? But I got involved into Eastern economics when I was like 16 or something, and then it, as Max said before, it led to Bitcoin. So I'm super interested in exactly this topic, how Austrian economic applies to not just Bitcoin, but let's say crypto-anarchistic movement as a whole.
Okay, thanks, Mario. I will Peter Rana in the chat.
Yeah, Peťo, pojď do toho, neboj se.
What?
Just tell us why are you here, why are you interested in these topics, and yeah.
Well, I'm in general interested in freedom, and privacy is one of the things that really helps individual, even in the world of state having big power, to achieve at least some freedom.
Nice, very good points. Who's next? Someone start speaking.
If you aren't feeling like you want to speak, or if you can't speak, you can just put it into the chat and we will read it out. So you don't actually have to speak if you want to communicate with us.
Come on, one more. Well, okay. Then I think let's continue. But again, at any point in time, you simply unmute yourself and speak. Again, this is not a talk. This is a conversation. So let's have a good one. So Peter gave a really nice summary of why individuals might choose to have privacy or to use privacy tools, and that is in order to increase their liberties, their freedoms. And this is basically the main line of argument that I would like to pursue a bit further here. Right. So again, we in Praxeology we start with axioms, with assumptions that we make, and that are on which we base our model upon. So an axiom is something that cannot be proven, that in theoretical argument, it is the base of the model on which you build upon, and then within that model, you can prove things. But the axiom itself, that is the baseline. And for us in Praxeology, as the name already says, it is human action. That is the core axiom of this theory, that individuals act. Right, so this means that first there are individuals, there are actual humans who are active, who are alive, and who do things, right? But then this is the first part, right? Individuals, not a collective. A collective, a state, a government, a corporation cannot act because it is not an individual. Only the individuals who are part of this group can act, but not the group in and of itself. So a very individualistic philosophy and mindset. And then the second part is action, right? And that specifically entails that an individual has specific end goals, specific desires that he would like to fulfill. And he has means at his disposal, tools available, resources and energy that he can use in order to change his world around him and achieve the ends that he is looking for. Right, so Mises is talking about individuals aligning their means in order to satisfy the ends. This is this fundamental concept, and that is action. Right, with every act is a conscious ordering of the priorities of your end goals, of what you potentially want to achieve, and then in a second step, a rational decision on which to pursue, and ultimately to act upon that. This is what makes the individual actually an individual and a human who is acting, and not just a robot who is responding. So far, what do you guys think? How about this assumption of individual human action?
Okay, it seems that we have no dissent here, so it seems like everybody's in agreement, or maybe new to the topic, so they don't have an opinion.
Okay, so then what can we build further out of this assumption of human action? Right. This, on one hand, it's the individualism, right, which I already covered just earlier. On the second aspect, it's a concept of resource allocation. There are not unlimited means available, so there's not enough diamonds for everyone to wear expensive jewelry. Or there are just not enough water for everyone to drink as much as he wants. There is a problem of resource allocation. Who gets which good in order to pursue his end? How do we allocate all the means that are available at the disposal of both a isolated individual as well as a group of individuals? And how is the allocation of these resources handled? And just in brief summary, there are probably three main different allocation models, fundamentally speaking, on who can decide which ends to pursue, basically, with the given means. And that is first, communism, which means there are no property rights. Everyone takes whatever he wants according to his needs, and you give as much as your ability allows you. But of course, this is a fundamental problem that, again, based on very rational analysis, is that ends are unlimited, right? You always want to have more Lambos in your car and in your garage. So you will always want more. You always need to have more. So just to take however you need does not solve the resource allocation problem, right? Specifically because it completely neglects the act of production, of actually creating these materials and these resources in order to use them later, right? You just say everyone provides according to his ability. But where does that ability come from, that drive towards producing something? This is, as I would say, neglected here. So the whole theory falls apart just on first principles. The second aspect of resource allocation would be slavery. Here we have a master class who control which ends to pursue and how to allocate the means available. And these are the people in control, the king, the slave master, the bureaucrat. And on the other hand, we have individuals who do not have that control of choosing freely which ends to pursue and how to allocate these means. And these individuals are the slaves, right? The exploited, those who produce something of value but then get it taken away. They do not have the ability or the right to choose which end to pursue and how to allocate their means. And of course, we could talk in depth about why this is a horrible system as well. But we will probably focus on some other topics today. And then the last reasonable option, the logical option, is to have individual property rights, meaning that each individual, whatever he homesteads, whatever he produces himself, whatever he creates out of both his human ingenuity and the spark of an idea and imagination and creativity, together with the means at his disposal that he has previously homesteaded or that he has previously exchanged for. This is the person who can allocate the resources. This is the individual who can choose which ends to pursue with these given means. And that fundamentally is the individualistic property rights based solution on how to allocate limited resources given an environment with unlimited ends that individuals want to pursue. And this basically wraps up the fundamental underlying reasoning on how we come from the axiom of individual human action to realizing that communism is fucking ludicrous, that slavery is a bad thing too, and that individual property rights and the freedom that this entails on its core baseline is the only, let's say, reasonable outcome that can be thought out of this. So what do you guys think about these different steps? Taking a lot from Mises here, especially Rothbard, on these different types of allocations. What do you think?
It seems that, again, there is no disagreement, so...
All right, good. Then from these points of view, how does privacy actually come into play? And I think at this point, it's useful to define privacy, at least in the context how I'm thinking about it and how I'm presenting you here. And that is the aspect that an individual reveals or selectively reveals himself to his surroundings and to other individuals in his area. And this, again, selective revelation, meaning there is a ordered preference list of outcomes, and a individual can choose which of these outcomes is best for his current estimation on individual preference. Meaning that there are some aspects that the individual chooses not to reveal, to keep a secret, to not tell, because it is beneficial to him. And there are other aspects where the individual chooses to reveal himself to the world and to become public and to engage with other individuals in a marketplace. And these are, this again comes down to an individualistic viewpoint of having individual preferences of how to allocate means. And here specifically, it is, for example, the information that is withheld or shared. Or some specific names maybe, or usage patterns, or whatever it is. And why, again, is this something that the individual has a right to do or ought to be able to do? And this is in one aspect because the information itself is created by the action of the individual. So it is not just somehow magically that we all gather here in cyberspace and speak. It is because us individually choose to open our mouth and to make use of our muscles and to speak a word, right? So this already is allocation of the resource, which is your bodily form, and which you use in order to manifest words and other means of communication. Same can be done if your computer hardware, that scarce hardware that you're using right now, is creating some information which you choose to send to someone else, mainly here the Jitsi server, in order to have that conversation. So this concept of selectively revealing yourself is based on action itself, because there's always the question of, do you act or do you not act? Do you choose to do something else? And this is where privacy as the selective revelation of yourself to the world comes in. And this is an incredibly important part if you come to think about it. And it's actually something that has thoroughly been discussed. Specifically, what comes to mind right now is Rothbard's Man, Economy, and State. He has a very clear separation of different theoretical models of individual action. And that is first the isolated individual, meaning an individual, he just takes Robinson, who is on a lonely island, and he does not have any contact to other individuals in the outside world, right? And then the second aspect is groups of individuals interacting with each other. And he has beautiful arguments based on this model. But if you think about it, this is actually about privacy too. The isolated individual is a private individual. He chooses not to reveal himself to other individuals. Right? He is not revealing himself to an outside world in the sense of other observers seeing him and acting upon him. And this is then makes it quite interesting, because there is already a very solid foundational argument why there is an inherent use and need for having private interactions, mainly having just interactions as an isolated individual. And this is something that is at the core aspect of being human. Right, that is to be able to act on yourself, to become self-sufficient, for example, to produce what you want and to consume what you have produced. These are all of these arguments that we make, that we base our theory of property rights upon, rely on the fact that there is an option for the individual to be isolated, to be independent, to be private, to not share information to the world. So this is really at the core part of praxeology in Austrian economics, which is quite interesting to realize. But then there's the other aspect of individual action, and that is the interwoven economy of multiple individuals coming together and acting and reacting based on each other. And here, the whole concept of mutual beneficial exchange comes in, which I probably won't have to go much into detail here. But again, the reason why people engage in trade is because it is for their individual benefit. They evaluate that in the future, if they have done that deal, if they did make the exchange, they will be better off than they are currently. It's a entrepreneurial judgment on how to allocate your resources, on which resources to trade away and which resources to buy and to hold, and which resources to consume or to produce with. And this, again, because we are in a theory of multiple individuals together, means that these individuals have to communicate with each other. They have to reveal themselves to each other and to communicate. And in the sense, this can of course go in the sense of family and friends and intellectual conversations like we're having now, but it can also mean the communication of trade, right? If you are an entrepreneur and you have produced a good and you are willing to sell this good, you need to make an offer to the marketplace so that other individuals can see that you are offering this good. This is, again, a selective revelation of information, right? You don't just go to a random person and say, I have 3 Lamborghinis, and do nothing with that. You only say this if you're actually willing to sell your Lamborghinis for more Bitcoin, right? And this means the selective revelation of what goods you currently have available at your disposal, and the fact that you're willing to trade them, as well as a starting price for a auction, basically, or for barter on what exchange good shall be used and what quantity. So again, the whole theory of individual exchange and mutual beneficial exchange relies on the fact of privacy, that these individuals can selectively reveal themselves. They are not forced to reveal everything that they have, but they can choose to reveal some of these secrets, specifically when it is to their own individual gain and benefit. And this is, yes, another a quite interesting realization. What do you guys think so far?
So does anybody has any opinions or any dissent or any questions at this point?
You see, and here I'm at a dilemma that, of course, it's your right to not engage your bodily muscles and to speak, obviously. However, it makes for a dreadfully boring conversation, right? So the gain that you have of speaking up and actually being part of the conversation is quite a lot, because this will mean that the information that you receive becomes much more valuable for you, and you can use it in more adaptive ways. So again, this is an applied exhibition of your individual preferences right now, to so far keep silent and be a passive listener, because you would evaluate that revealing yourself to open up and to speak might actually hurt you, your individual preferences in whatever shape or form. So again, it's quite interesting to actually apply this line of reasoning to whatever current situation it is, like right now. Okay, but now maybe a bit further in the line of reasoning. We've established the individual and his action and the property rights that follow out of this. And these include the right to selectively reveal yourself, to selectively use your property and allocate your property as you want to. And again, based on individual benefit and gain. Now, how can we further elaborate a more nuanced view on privacy from this? Why do individuals choose to remain private in some situations? What is the benefit that they see out of this? And in a more nuanced argument, it would be the defense of property rights again. The ability to, in the long term, still be able to allocate your means as you see wish. And this aspect of defending your property rights today in order to be able to use them in the future, to still have that ownership, that I think is the core aspect of why privacy is chosen. And why this is for example, or can be viewed on by a concept of the OODA loop. It explains, somewhat similar to the trivium of reason, how individuals observe, orient, decide, and react, or act. So this is where UU, like OODA, OODA, comes from. So at the very first, you need to observe, meaning that any individual needs to take in some information, some outside data from his environment, from the words that he used, from the actions of other individuals. This first step of input is the observation. And next, you need to orient yourself, meaning you need to more clearly see what is actually going on. So a observation of an act, that something happened, that some outside input changed across time. This is the orientation itself. And a very important next step is the attribution. What was the cause of the change? Who did it? Who was the one who did the action? To attribute a specific individual to some reality in the outside world. And finally, then comes, the next step is the decision. What do you as an individual do now that you know that outside there is another individual who has manifested change in whatever shape or form? And finally, after you made a decision on what you want to do, how you will allocate your means now in order to reach the ends, and how this outside input has changed your end preferences on which to pursue. Finally, you act. Right? So you adapt yourself to the current environment that has changed based on some other actor providing a random input. And this is a whole concept on how to look again at human action. So first you observe and you orient, and then you attribute to make a decision on how to act. Which is again how this whole process of individual human action can be described or viewed upon. And now, in order to be able to defend yourself against an attacker, an outside attacker, using this principle to harm you, how would you do that? And the thing is that with each step that proceeds from observation to orientation to attribution to decision to action, with every further step, you're closer to the act of the other individual, of the attacker, and thus you have less time to react. So the sooner that you can break this OODA loop, the better. So, for example, in the worst case, someone sees that you have a gold jewelry, or someone sees that there is a gold jewelry and that it is around your neck, and that you are the one who is wearing this gold jewelry. And he thinks, oh, this is a nice jewelry, I want to have that. So I will get out my gun and threaten him, and then he does it, right? So this is the steps of this act. Well, if you try to interrupt it just before the action, so the attacker made the decision that he's going to shoot you, but he's about to get his gun out. If you interrupt him at this point, it's already pretty risky, right? Because he already has made up his mind that you need to that he will act, that he will shoot you. So to deter that attack, to convince him that it is actually not a good idea, to make him break his original decision and make a new decision, to have a different act based on the current situation, that's difficult, right? You somehow need to scare him and make him run away, but that's not easy. So if the OODA loop is broken at that late of a stage, it is very risky and might lead you to lose your property rights. So you try to break the OODA loop at one step earlier, which means after he has attributed you to be the one wearing a gold jewelry, but before he decides to act. So in that example, it would be, you notice that a weird guy is looking at your gold jewelry as if he wants to steal it, and you run away. Right? Before he can make the act of choosing, or before he can decide on how to act, you are already out of the picture and his opportunity is gone. This is already good. It is better than before. You can act before he actually makes the decision, but still, it is pretty risky. He has already seen that you have something of value, that there is something to his benefit that you possess, and that it might be a benefit for him to steal it. Which means we're still at a pretty risky situation. Thus, let's try to break the OODA loop a step further, which means after the orientation, so the guy sees that there is a gold jewelry somewhere, but before the attribution. This means before the attacker can attribute a target on whom he might choose to act. So he might know that at this party, one guy is wearing a golden watch, but he has no clue which person exactly is wearing that watch. And this, if you can break the attack at this point, it is already quite good, because although the attacker is alert and he knows that there is something valuable to steal here, he does not know where to steal it and from whom to steal it. So if you get out of the OODA loop of escalation at this point, it's already really, really good. And what do we have here when we don't, when we do not link our identity to a specific act, right? That is already privacy. If you already can choose to hide the information that you are the person who is wearing the golden watch, then you already have privacy. You choose not to reveal this information. You did not post a picture on Instagram with the Lambo and the gold watch, right? So you choose to remain private and not show everyone that you have the golden watch. And thus, even if someone finds out that there is a golden watch, he will not know that it's you, which means you already have some privacy. The attacker did find some information, namely that he did have the orientation, but he did not have yet the attribution of who actually did it. And this is already a very efficient way at breaking the OODA loop, because you just not telling anyone that you own something is a rather doable concept. Right? You, again, just don't post pictures of your Lambos on Instagram. But you just, maybe even you don't, like you wouldn't even send it to a friend, for example, if you are that frugal and don't flash all your riches. That is a possibility on how you can act today in order to defend your property rights, both today and in the future, because it will make it difficult for others to find out how much money you have. And this, of course, means that they do not have the information to make the decision on if it's worthy to rob from you. So again, this attribution is here one of the latest point in this escalation where the privacy comes in. When we break the attribution of who did a act, that is already an incredibly powerful tool of defense. But we can go even further, right? And that is to stop the actor from even observing that something is going on here. This basically is complete anonymity, which I would differ from privacy. Meaning anonymity is that there is actually no observer to this act. The act cannot be observed. The OODA loop cannot even start. Nobody knows that there is a gold watch. Nobody has a clue that there is even any jewelry here. Nobody has yet observed the fact that there is a gold watch being used. And here is where strong anonymity and strong encryption and strong privacy tools come in. At this very point, to make it even impossible for anyone to find out what was being said, or even that there was something said. Actually, this is an interesting differentiation again. You can have, for example, good encryption of your messages, but in a way that a central or that one attacker can still see that you are sending messages. right? So he sees that a internet identity is sending messages to another internet identity. So it's not anonymous. He can observe that there is something happening, but he cannot orient himself. He cannot decrypt the text. He does not see the clear text message that is being sent. He only sees ciphertext. So here the orientation is what is being broken. There is an observer who sees, okay, there is some traffic going through Tor, but he does not know what is actually the content of the traffic because of the use of strong encryption and other tools. This is another point here where the OODA loop can be broken, and where privacy can be used as a strategic tool in order to defend your property in a long-term environment. So what do you guys say about this comparison of the OODA loop with how it lines up with property rights?
Okay, so do you have any opinions? All right, so it seems that there is still no disagreement.
Okay. So then as a next step, we might go a bit more into we might build now on top of that theory of the individual acting, and that privacy is a fundamental part of action, and how privacy can be useful in order to protect property rights by breaking the OODA loop of an attacker. We can now build upon that and talk a bit more about the application on why or on which tools are useful in order to be private, and how this is of benefit to an individual in different aspects of life. So of course I would say we already spoke a bit about the aspect of privacy as a defense of property rights, and this then already starts, very early. It not an isolated individual. Again, there's no need for privacy, or he's private by default. There is no outside interaction with other individuals. But as soon as we are in the market economy, and as soon as there are individuals who have a property right, there is the question of whom do you share this information with, and there might be some benefits when you do it. For example, if there is a private company or even a state who provide a service of protecting property rights, maybe some insurance, for example, then of course, in order to use that service of having some insurance for theft, for example, you probably need to tell these other entrepreneurs about the property that you want to insure. And here there would already be a revelation of that property right, that or an attribution that this specific house, for example, belongs to you, so that you can create the contract for the insurance and all the everything that is included. And already here, for some individuals, this is of course a beneficial trait, right? To have such an insurance contract in order to prevent theft might have the same outcome as trying to stay private and anonymous, so that no attacker can actually or will find you and get your property. So here, revelation of your property might be a better security defense than actually staying private and not telling others how much you have. Because again, if you the aspect that an attacker might not know that you have much money is not a bulletproof defense against him not stealing from you. He might just try. He might just get a kick out of it and get some other a thrill of beating you up and taking the little money you have in the wallet. That might still be a possibility. So it's not a bulletproof solution to just look poor and then hope that nobody will steal from you. So there might be other steps taken in order to even better have that privacy. Another aspect to look at it is for the entrepreneur, right? So an entrepreneur is an individual who is allocating his own resources in order to achieve ends in the future. And these ends are both in order to justify him, But the means in order to justify yourself as an entrepreneur is by providing a valuable service to other individuals, who then in exchange give you more money than you would have expected, or than that you would have thought worthy to trade with. So for the entrepreneur, the satisfaction of others is the way in how he gets his satisfaction himself. And in this aspect, again, we are engaging with other individuals, meaning that we have to selectively reveal some information about us to the others. And as said earlier, this is, for example, an offer. Right? The offer is directly a revelation of a secret that you have this good to sell at this starting price point in negotiation. This already is some aspect that you want to share. But there are other aspects that you probably do not want to share. For example, how much it costs you in order to get that good. So all the cost of your supply and the supply chain and the added value that you put on, all of this might be information that is of benefit to your counterparty, in the sense that he might be more aggressive with negotiating a price. And so try to push the price lower, knowing that you have a large margin, which of course is not to your benefit. More money is better than less money, marginally, meaning that it would be better for you to get a higher price. And if you have a possibility of getting a higher price, because the other party does not know how much you pay in supply, is beneficial to have. So this might be something to just keep that secret of cost, but not just in relation to your client, but also in relation to competitors, right? So there are competitors who will want to know more information about your business. Again, for example, the cost of a supplier, right? If they realize that the supplier that you use is cheaper than theirs, they might use it and gain in margin against you. So this might already be a reason to keep information private. Or for example, for employees who get paid a salary, right? It might be bad practice or bad customs to reveal to everyone how much money this employee exactly makes. And again, it changes the negotiation power between employee and employer. For example, if there's one employee who does a worse job and he gets paid less, but he finds out that the other guy gets paid even more, then he might get disappointed or demand to be paid even more, which will lead to negotiation costs and all this. So again, as an entrepreneurial individual, this might be something that wants to be avoided. So here again, there are many use cases why the individuals, or in this case specifically entrepreneurs, would choose to remain private. But here, by the way, we're already out of praxeological reasoning. This is now making a guess on how other individuals might value their ends and their means. This is no longer a wertfrei analysis on what we're talking about. So actually the praxeology part is probably over, but still interesting to go down this avenue and seeing why individuals would care for privacy. Now that we've established that the privacy is actually a real thing and an important thing. One aspect I would say for sure is that is very important, both to privacy in general, specifically to entrepreneurial privacy, is privacy in money, meaning financial transactions and holdings of monetary currency. How does privacy play into this aspect? And of course, the very first comes back. Being private about the quantity of money you have is a protective measurement to reduce the risk of theft, or rather to increase the cost of theft, which hopefully will reduce it happening. So again, if nobody knows how many Bitcoin you have, that is fantastic, because then it is much more expensive to do a spam attack, basically, in order to find you. It is much cheaper to have the targeted attack. And this is especially important for money, because money, based on its utility that it provides, is a very liquid medium of exchange. So as soon as you steal the money, you have a fungible currency that you can trade for whatever good or service you would like to buy on the marketplace. So it's the perfect good to steal because of all these many benefits. Then this also ties back to the entrepreneurial area of not revealing how much you pay your suppliers, right? So for example, if you get paid by a customer for a specific machine that you produce or whatever it is, and later you send that money again to the next person who is the supplier whom you pay the aluminum for that you need for the machine. If the client can spy on that transaction and see and observe that this transaction is happening, attributed to both you and the counterparty, the aluminum trader, then he can make, again, many decisions based on that. And depending on what medium of exchange is used, there are different levels of sensitive information which is being revealed, either to trusted third parties or to the whole world in general. So here again, having the privacy of the receiver of the receiver of a transaction not spying onto the next person is incredibly important. One additional thing that came to mind is the aspect of privacy and reputation, and how this brings together, because the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto actually speaks about this at length, that reputation of these pseudonymous identities is of utmost importance, because the fact that there can be action that are selectively revealed to be attributed to this one entity, to this identity. Here, when many of these actions are not revealed, when there is anonymity, there is a very, very difficult aspect of how to build reputation and trust in these systems. So would you lend a complete anonymous guy, a complete stranger, would you give him 1 Bitcoin in the hope that he gives it back to you in 1 year? And you will have no idea to find him if he ever disappears. Not having a reputation, specifically in a debt-based system or debt-based act, but also many other cases, is extremely difficult and costly to have. There's a lot of uncertainty, and the potential cost of a recovery from a theft is especially high, which is a problem. And this goes, of course, for debt that is being settled, but this also goes for contract work. Would you pay a complete anonymous stranger who has no reputation? Would you let that guy build your house, or will he just set it on fire? It is extremely difficult to also collaborate, for example, in your supply chain. To have a business relationship with complete anonymous strangers is very, very difficult. Specifically, entrepreneurs tend to have a rather long relationship with like a low time preference in order to build a long-lasting and prosperous relationship across multiple rounds of interaction. But the thing is, if you cannot attribute each round of interaction to the same party, and you don't even know if you're talking to the same person the next day that you did the previous day, this again increases uncertainty and cost tremendously, which means that privacy here might not be as beneficial, or there are good reasons why in many situations to not reveal your privacy, or to not keep your privacy, but instead reveal some information. Guys, what do you think so far? How about opening your mouths now?
Anybody has anything to contribute? You can write a message to chat. You don't actually have to speak, so it's up to you. All right.
Yeah, so as I said a couple minutes ago, we were already pretty far out off the topic of specifically praxeology on privacy. Again, we've left the wertfrei analysis, and actually now for the last couple of minutes I talked more about individual reasons why and how one individual might choose. These are very different statements that I just made recently compared to the initial statements of Humans Act and privacy, selective revelation. So always keep this at a grain of salt. It's a very different type of analysis. But I actually think that I covered so much already in that topic of specifically the praxeology that I'm pretty much out of new insight that I would give specifically for here. So unless there are any pressing questions that you guys would like to ask, I think we can start to wrap this up.
All right. So do we have any final questions to the topic of privacy, praxeology of privacy, or praxeology, or any at least slight remotely connected issue?
I'm just thinking about the last part. That it's so beautiful that we have an Ethereum and we can borrow money to complete strangers.
Yeah, and you see, this is an important point here with what I just said earlier. What I say there is not a wertfrei analysis. Right? There might be many reasons why you want to choose to rent out to an anonymous individual, and there might be technologies that support this use case, as some shitcoins are doing. So this is for sure possible, and very likely to happen. And there's no proof for or against it. I'm just saying that there is a higher risk, or at least I individually perceive a higher risk of lending my money out to an anonymous guy compared to a person who has some reputation with me. But for sure, it's possible.
So do you have any more questions? Still some participants here on the call, so do you have anything to ask? Comment on? Right, so it seems that you are really without any questions. So maybe your talk was just too clear. Maybe you should have obfuscated it a little bit more so that there would be more questions.
Yes, that's a problem with praxeological analysis. It's very rigorous and logical, and it seems, at least to me, quite clear and precise. I still hope that there are many mistakes that I made, and there are many more nuances in the argumentation. So I still continue to discover more about these different aspects, and it's incredibly interesting, both to work more on the theory and also apply that and actually build tools and use them for real world use cases, which is quite fun. But yeah, for sure. Thanks guys for the invitation. It was fun to speak. Yeah, Mario, thanks for organizing this, and to all the listeners out there. So thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to have you here, Max, and thank you all guys for coming.
Thank you for coming, and you will find the recording of this talk on YouTube, as well as all the other previous webinars that we had. There's quite a lot of them because, as we said, we've been doing this since March. So there is definitely a lot of material to watch if you are interested in more topics similar to this. And if you want to know more about us, or Students for Liberty, definitely reach out to us on Facebook or any other social media. You can find contact on us on our webpage, so please do so if you are interested. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you or meeting you at further events. Have a good night.